Speaking of getting it together, man, seems like Joe Rogan's got to get it together. He's got a lot of enemies coming for him. A lot of people do not like Joe Rogan. He is, I guess, quote-unquote, independent media. And it seems like mainstream media is really coming at him. Now, that doesn't mean I agree with everything Joe Rogan does or says. I probably disagree with him more. I think the people that he has on his platform, a lot of grifters who spread misinformation and don't really, and facts, go against that. A lot of his views, he'll talk about things that he doesn't like. He also talks about things he does that I do agree on, that he is right about. That a lot of people don't want to bring up, either because they don't agree with that and they're trying to paint him as, they don't agree with it because they want him to be on their side, or they don't point it out because they want to be on their side, and they want their fans to keep thinking that he's one of them, or they don't agree because he's not on their side and they're trying to make him look worse than what he is. That's what I think happens a lot of times with Joe. As far as why people only talk about, I guess, the right-wing talking points, they never bring up a lot of his lefty views. But one of the things I do like about Joe Rogan is that he at least admits he doesn't know everything, and if he's wrong about something, he's not above coming out and saying, hey, you know what, I was wrong about that. That's not what it was. Yada yada. That's this is who he is. So I do like that about him. But once you decide you want to do podcasts and give your opinion for a living, a lot of things gonna come back at you. And you recorded a lot of these things, even if you delete episodes, somebody's got that clip somewhere and they ready to put it out on you. But even before we get to the controversy with him and the N-word, it started out bad at first because everybody was mad at him. They saying he's spreading misinformation about COVID, and that's causing problems. And people listening to him and the guests he has on there are wrong, or they're like in a minority of people. And even I think it was like music artist Neil Young was like he's taking his music off of Spotify in protest, and that brought a lot of people to think, well, should you do that? Is that a smart thing to do? Should we be censoring people for having differences of opinions or talking to people with differences of opinions? I'll touch on that first. No, I don't think you should censor anybody for a difference of opinion, or for even if they're saying something that they want you to believe in that may be factually not true. I think in America that's a very slippery slope, because once we start, oh, you can't say this or can't say that, where does it end? How far will they go? That could be the door to take away more of your freedoms. Remember the Patriot Act after 9/11, when they had us so scared about terrorism and using America first and talking all this stuff and all this patriotic talk to get you to give away your rights, and NSA was able to spy on us. I mean, that just happened 20 years ago. And now we're in a situation where more and more people are trying to censor. Now, I'm not one of the people who go like, oh, the woke culture, because let's be honest, the right wing, they like to censor. They have their fanatics that want to censor just as much. I mean, look at the Whoopi Goldberg situation, which we're gonna get into, of course. The same thing. So it's just people who feel they're right and don't want to hear anything from the other side. Don't want to engage in conversation. Just feel like you should just shut them down, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you stand on. So I understand where Neil Young's coming from. I don't think he has any malicious intent with this, but I just think he's misinformed, and I think he's wrong. And you shouldn't want to cancel somebody. You should just, if anything, why don't you support people who are spreading actual correct information? And Spotify's not getting rid of Joe Rogan. You know how much money they had to pay him? And Joe Rogan, he's the biggest name in podcasts, and Spotify has really grown into the podcast industry in a big way. They're not dropping him and losing all that, losing those people. Some people came just for Joe Rogan. He's culminated a pretty loyal and huge fan base. So that's not going to happen. I think, if anything, why don't you go on there? Why don't you contact Joe Rogan and say, hey, look, I got some people who have an alternate take on it. They have some facts, and they have other places you can look at for facts. Because I think that some of your guests are leading you astray, misinforming you. And one of the things I do like about Joe Rogan, he came out and he talked, and he said, like, maybe I should have guests with differences of opinion and try to balance it out more. And even he was like, yeah, we can put some disclaimers on there. So yeah, he does try. He is trying. At least he's willing to, you know, try to work things out and try to make everybody feel comfortable. He's not a grifter, just wanting to spread misinformation. He has no ego about it. Like I said, he's fine with saying when he's wrong. So I'm fine with that. My only problem with Joe Rogan with this is he does kind of, like I said, he did kind of tend to go for the same people, spreading the same misinformation. And even when he was called out on it and he'll admit, okay, that was wrong, he never goes and questions the whole thing. He stays within that same, he stays within that same place where he gets his information. Like he's like in this wall, this bubble of information with all these, I guess, grifter sites that are just trying to downplay the seriousness of COVID. Now, whatever you feel about it, either way, that's your opinion, that's fine. I'm not even going to go into detail about that. I think one of my biggest issues with Joe Rogan with this was, so his initial response to the COVID video was, he came out and like he said, okay, I will try to make things better. But one of the things he said that I just could not agree with, he was like, well, you know, you guys are saying this misinformation is wrong, but, and then he starts listing things that people used to think were wrong misinformation that end up not being true. Now, some of those things were right, like not wearing masks, but then he says, like, if people would have said cloth masks weren't any good back then, that would have been a problem, but now it's fine. And my response to that is like, no, there was actual articles back then that said cloth masks don't work, and not as effective. They probably keep the bacteria on it longer and they can get through. Like this was said, I remember this being said. I just kept wearing cloth masks because it's like, whatever. The mask is not to protect you anyway. The masks we had weren't protecting you anyway. It was just about keeping other people from getting sick. And then he also said, what else he said? He said he was talking about how, they were saying if you got the COVID shot, people were like, if you said you could still get COVID even getting the vaccine, people would have called you crazy. You got canceled for that. I'm like, no, I think everybody always knew that you could still get it. And I've heard this from other people too. I don't understand where people got this notion that people were saying once you get the COVID shot, once you get the vaccine, you're not going to get COVID. That was never what it was. We have flu shots. We know how this works. You can still get the flu from a flu shot. The idea of it is it lessens its ability to spread and it lessens the effect that it has on you, which was the point, which was the same thing was the point with the lockdown. The lockdown wasn't to get rid of COVID. It was to stop it, or not stop it, but decrease the amount of people getting infected to add some, to give some assistance to the hospital workers, because the hospitals were being overflooded with people sick and they couldn't even help people with other diseases because so many people with COVID were coming in. That was the point of the lockdown, to try to slow down the spread of this disease while we're working on it. I think so many people are now like, none of these things stop COVID. We're never supposed to 100% stop it. What it's supposed to do is decrease it and monitor it at a pace where it can be dealt with at a better rate. So nobody was lying. If people were saying that, it's the people that are trying to make you not want it and be like, they think it's gonna stop. It's supposed to stop COVID. And no, nobody who's like an honest person was saying taking a vaccine will mean you never get COVID. That's just not a thing. But even with all that said, I still do not agree with this thing of artists saying I'm gonna take my music off, because there are bad people all over, not just about COVID or whatever. Like, there are bad people all over that do a lot of bad things. And COVID or saying words, there are people, who hurt other people or who commit, rapes or murders or all these. People do bad things that are on all forms of media. So I guess it's just have to take yourself off of all forms of media. If you want to live by this moral code, I think it's ridiculous. I think if anything, you just combat that misinformation, or you combat somebody saying something you don't agree with your own opinion. That's how it works. That's how it should work. Not trying to force people to stop messing with them. I'm going to take my stuff down, And I think when NDIRE did that, I'm like, first of all, nobody cares. I was like, no, nobody cares. I don't know about Neil Young either, so I'm saying. But these artists, it's like these artists, they're like, all right. And who knows, maybe Neil Young got an audience like that. Maybe he's got maybe I'm like, dang, man, Neil Young, he moving numbers. I don't know. I didn't even know the man until he said honestly, I didn't know the man until he came out and said he's moving his stuff from Spotify because Logan. NDIRE, I ain't heard nobody, I'm in the black community. I ain't heard nobody talk about NDIRE since since she's not ahead. Since she was not ahead. You know what I'm saying? not her skin, she so live within. But she came out and said she's gonna remove her music, or maybe she's already done it. And I don't know. I'll check her music. But from Spotify because of Joe Rogan too. And one of her reasons was the COVID situation. The other reason was the bigger news about Joe Rogan. There was a clip, or it was a video of multiple clips of Joe Rogan using the N-word, actually saying it at multiple different times, different situations, either from telling stories or making jokes, but he was saying it, and it looked bad, and it was bad, because you should not say it. So Joe Rogan, of course, came out, and he apologized for it, and said that he never thought that he could say it as long as he wasn't saying it towards anybody. He was just using it, like just saying a sentence, not really being in a derogatory way towards any individual person or persons. And I do hear that a lot of times from white people. And I'm even going to accept his apology. I'll tell you why I accept his apology. Because I do believe him. I believe that he didn't mean any malicious intent. Joe Rogan's a comedian. Joe Rogan, he likes to talk and tell stories. Of course he likes to talk. He has the most popular podcast in the world. And so I believe that, he recorded these things. He was recording them. So of course he's recording and talking about it. He's not doing it in his secret. We didn't catch him like in his house doing it, like talking to some friends. Somebody found him and released the video. These were stories. These were things that were up. We having conversations. So I do believe that he didn't think that it was like that. But I also see a lot of people like getting really mad at him and like, oh, we don't believe you. Not, it's not wrong to get mad at him, but saying like, oh, we don't believe you and now yada yada yada. I do think we have to have some sense of forgiveness, understanding, and educating them. And like, if we want things to be, do we want things to be better, or do we just want to be victims for it? Because if we want things to be better, then when somebody is willing to admit they were wrong, thank you for admitting you were wrong, and let's see if we can come together. You use your platform. We can have a conversation about this and maybe educate other people. I think that's the way to go about it instead of just dismissing him. I do believe that Joe Rogan is 100% sorry for using the N-word. That being said, he definitely had some crazy lines in there about the Planet of the Apes, and I can't remember, he said some other stuff in there. It was like, that's just wrong. Like it's not even like, how could you even use that in that context, knowing that word and that history, and what that means to, like I said, the history, what that means to black people. And I think there's something there that, he needs to look within himself, maybe a family member or something that he didn't know he had, but I do think there's something there, because once you start making those type of jokes, you gotta suffer the consequences of that. Because now it's not just you repeating a song lyric, or you just saying, hey, such and such said that word. It's like you're like, oh yeah, we were high, we went to go see the Planet of the Apes, we walked up in the hood, and of course, let me finish. He said we walked up in the hood, and it was like we were in the Planet of the Apes. It was scary. Of course, he said it was a good time experience, and they don't give you the full context of the story. But even like, Jesus, man, don't you got an editing team? If people doing you foul, bro, cut that out. Oh, I should have said that. Wait a minute. That's one of them times you be like, bro, hold up, let's start that over. You know what I'm saying? But hopefully this will make him more aware. Maybe he can bring, like I said, some people on the show that can educate him and some of his viewers on why it's not right to say that, and give some context to, why some people are upset about that word. I'll leave with this though. Again, Joe Rogan is independent media. Joe Rogan is growing a lot of power and influence, and the establishment does not like that because he doesn't play ball, and he's willing to criticize both the right and the left as far as Democrats and Republicans and Democrats. He's willing to criticize both of the mainstream leaders and the media, and I do see this attempt to silence him and get rid of him, and even though I hate this word, cancel him, so that he doesn't have that influence, because he does bring a lot of unknown people on his podcast with a message, with a voice. He does rally against the establishment, and he is genuinely interested in getting the truth, even though I think he looks in the wrong place sometimes. And I think that the mainstream media is scared of that. You know, when Bernie Sanders went on his podcast to talk, that was a blow. And how big it became and how many people got Bernie's message that a lot of times are misinformed of what he actually believes in. And he's just this crazy guy that wants to just give money to everybody. No, he's a smart guy who has a plan. And I think that kind of rubbed people the wrong way because you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to come to the real news, right? The quote-unquote real news, the corporate news with the corporate agenda, with the corporate sponsors, you know, with the corporate money. And I can criticize him for using the word and say that's not cool, and hope that he changes his ways and learns from this. But I can also acknowledge that this is definitely a hit against Joe Rogan because of the power he wields and how he's not willing to bend the knee for the powerful and the corrupt.
It's the WACCast podcast. Yeah.
Talk whack to me. Talk whack to me.
Yeah.
Talk whack to me. Talk whack
It's
to me.
the WACCast podcast. Yeah.
Talk whack to me. Talk whack to me.
Yeah.
Talk whack to me. Talk whack to me.